Hello, I am Emanuela.
And I'm Maria, and we are master degree students of International Accounting and Management at the University of Siena.
During the month of December, and in particular on 3, 11, and 17 December, we have attended three roundtables on the implementation of the Payment Service Directive 2 in a series of member states organized during the 2020 Eumol Winter School held at the University of Siena. Eumol is a European project called Jean Monnet Chair in the field of European money law. It is mostly funded by educational, audiovisual, and cultural executive agency within the Erasmus Plus program. And the University of Siena is a co-founder of this project. It is a 3-year cross-border university project focusing on the European integration process for money and payments, looking into the traditional payment system but also covering blockchain, fintech, and cryptocurrencies. Eumol John Mannet Chair achieves its goals by means of teaching and researching activities, and in particular, one of the teaching activities is Eumol Winter School, that is set up as an interdisciplinary event where the bachelor and master students degree of University of Siena meet scholars in an informal atmosphere, but this year, due to the COVID-19 pandemic emergency, it is organized as Eumol Windows, so as a series of webinars in terms of lectures, roundtables, and book presentations set up during a business law course. These roundtables are organized by business laws professor Gabriella Gimigliano, who is the chairholder of the group of researchers of Eumol project. As she has explained us at the beginning of the first roundtable, these events are organized because Professor Gimigliano, together with Marta Bozzina Berros, who is a professor at the University of Pula, is editing Edgar Law commentary on PSD2 to be published by Edward Edgar next year, and this commentary is organized in two parts. The first part analyzes the PSD2 directive, while the second part analyzes some member states and how the PSD2 was implemented in these member states.
So during the events, it is analyzed PSD2 directive implementation in Finland, Estonia, Croatia, Austria, Czech Republic, Greece, Spain, and United Kingdom. In particular, the professor invited the panelists to participate in order to bring their national standpoint. So, the panelists were Ivana Parac-Vukomanovic, Director of the Financial and Supervisory Law Department of Croatian National Bank, who speaks about Croatia, Nikita Divisenko, PhD candidate, Law Department of the European University Institute in Florence, Italy, and talked about Estonia, Jurita Rama, PhD candidate, University of Helsinki, Finland. In the second round table, though, we had Martin Miernicki, PhD Research and Teaching Fellow, Institute of Business Law at the University of Vienna, Austria, Peter Kota, PhD Assistant Professor, Faculty of Law, Charles University in Prague, Czech Republic. The third round table was held by Christos Gorzos, PhD Professor of Public Economic Law, Law School, National Kapodistrian University of Athens, Greece, Fernando Zunzengui, PhD Assistant Professor of Financial Markets Law, Carlos III University of Madrid, and Independent Lawyer, Spain, Daniele Dalvia, PhD Teaching Fellow, Center for Commercial Law Studies, Queen Mary University of London, United Kingdom.
Each roundtable were divided into two parts, each of which started with a question formulated by the Professor Gimigliano, to which all the panelists answered, and then there was the possibility for the students to pose their question to one panelist or to all of them. The first question that the professor posed to the panelists was to which extent for the implementation of the PSD2 in their national legal system raise more regulatory concerns or create legal uncertainty regarding the different topics covered. We can define also the main topic of PSD2, that are payment service provider and especially payment institutions, transparency rules, and the rights and obligations of contracting parties in the provision of payment services. While the second question was taking into account PSD2, what they think is missing to improve the legal framework for payments in their national legal system and at the European level. And moreover, which is the missing point of PSD2? So the missing point at the European level and the construction of internal market, and at the national level in their own jurisdiction.
So, all the panelists have given their own idea about the implementation of PSD2 in their countries, taking into account the main actual issues and situations. For example, some topics covered in these events are the strong customer authentication and the relationship between PSD2 and the General Data Protection Regulation. So, Peter Korab explained how Czech Republic and the government have taken conservative approach, not changing anything if they don't have to change it, and most importantly, not changing something that has worked quite well. The result is that the PSD2 and its transposition in Czech law has been adopted quite well, without any dramatic situations. It can be improved on the side of the European monetary policy and the adoption of single currency, since Czech Republic hasn't still adopted euro. So, they have two payment systems that to some extent are separated, one in Czech crowns and the other one in all other currencies. What a regular customer expects from the payment industry is quickness, reliability, and cheapness, meaning that the payment should not be that expensive. For the domestic payments, in Czech Republic is zero. You don't pay anything for transfer from one payment account to another payment account. You may pay other fees, but the competition is quite strong that moves fees down and down. So, while when you have to make payments abroad, the payments competition is not really strong, since you have to use capable provider, the conversion, the cost of the conversion in currencies, and etc. The cost of that type of payment services is still above the purely domestic payment services. So, the pro-competitive approach has not fulfilled its aim in whole, meaning that a progress has been made since 10 years ago, but the domestic competition is still doing much better than the cross-border competition. Next, Martin Miernicki talked about a regulatory approach that is not bad in Austria, since it is a small country in the European Union, and there are not many third-party providers. The problematic field is the interpretation on the directive when it comes to data protection issues. So basically, the PSD2 doesn't really regulate the relationship to data protection. The main for that is the GDPR. So basically, they have an article 94 of the PSD2 that states that they need an explicit consent. The standards of the GDPR are pretty much strict in public law and its core, while the payment services rules regard the private law. So this is a contractual permission, but the PSD2 doesn't specify that. However, this is a problematic field. Basically, some panelists have also talked about the pandemic situation, and in particular, other issue of the COVID-19 pandemic is the elimination of cash. So, withdrawal of money at the ATMs has dropped to 50%, while digitalization of payment has improved a lot. So, in Spain during the pandemic, 79% of the people prefer to pay with contactless cards. It means that they are going to digitalization, but with the pandemia, they're moving really fast. In conclusion, we want to show our practical example of one question that we posed during the first roundtable. So, the question is, due to the complexity of the European payments market and the changes imposed by the new legislation, some payment service providers may not be ready for strong customer authentication. Could there be negative consequences for users, and if so, how could they be avoided?
For the time being, I cannot see them. It might be a bit more difficult to try and remember your PIN than to just sign the slip of your credit card. But the main idea of the PSD2 that was presented to us by the Commission has been fostering innovation on one side, but on the other side, protecting users and protecting them among other things, by increasing the level of security for them. So the main idea for SCA would be protecting the users. Maybe Yuri or Nikita can correct me. Maybe they see some disadvantages.
But I would just if I may, it's a good question. We have to make and what has been widely cited or claimed are the issues that the new framework brought for merchants in terms of conversion rates and in the sense that more consumers tend to abandon the checkout process, the purchase process, which I believe is temporary, and I totally agree with Ivana that the primary objective of the directive was to make the implementation. I wouldn't say it is a very big issue.
I believe the downside of the SCA is more the transposition period is more the problem with us. The requirements of strong customer authentication in the PSD2 and currently in the strong customer authentication RTS, they are quite clear. But then again, if you start from the point where the people are using PIN codes or SMS things and have certain user experience already using the services, then they may face some problems when they need to suddenly install a kind of application to the smartphone or use a device or different device for the authentication. And for in my bank in Nordea, we faced some problems, for instance, with those people having problems with their site, and we had to implement devices who read out access codes to those who can't see the screen of the device, and that maybe have created some other problems, and how to learn to use these kind of things. But then again, when you have already implemented new methods, then they should be simple than, or at least more secure than the previous ones.